Greetings, fellow CCG fans. Raven Dark here, and we're going to be playing some memes today with a mill deck. And this one is Bant, so another Bant mill. And it's slightly based on Covert Go Blue's land deck, where he was playing Tatyova and Scapeshift to draw a bunch of cards. And in this case, we're also running the mill package with Psychic Corrosion, so that we can, as we draw all of those cards, we can dump a bunch of their cards into their graveyard, which is pretty amazing when it happens, though it doesn't happen too often. The other part of our mill package, of course, is Patient Rebuilding, which is a 2 of. We do have a lot of card draw in this deck with Champion of Wits, especially when it's eternalized Trophy Mage to help us to fetch Crucible of Worlds, which is another part of the combo, because you can use Tatyova, Benthic, Druid with a Evolving Wilds to heal for 2 and draw 2 cards, which is really very handy. And if you do happen to get the awesome Scapeshift combo off, which is Psychic Corrosion, Tatyova plus Scapeshift, you're going to end up having a bunch of cards in hand, so that's where the Reliquary Tower comes into play, allowing you to have no maximum hand size, and you don't have to worry about discarding anything. And as far as the other card draw we have, also strategic planning. You could run other things like chart a course if you wanted to. Anticipate is another option, since Anticipate is an instant. I prefer to dig a little bit deeper, though, and I'm not too concerned about throwing lands into the graveyard, so that's why I chose strategic planning. Of course, Search for Azcanta also allows you to draw cards once it's been transformed. Settle the Wreckage. Of course, we really need this versus any creature decks. It also mills them a bit by allowing them to mill themselves by playing some of their lands from their deck. And of course, the other side of Spring, the Mind, we get to draw some cards. So lots of card draw in this deck. Don't really have much in the way of counterspells. We do play one of a commit, but that's not really what we're trying to do. And of course, against aggro, we do have Seal Aways, our Champion of Wits and Trophy Mage. They can mitigate some of the early damage, though Champion of Wits dying to Goblin Chain Roller is kind of a problem. Cast outs to deal with Planeswalkers, but usually the only way to win against aggro is to get one of our sweepers. And that's what we're really hoping to do. This deck does play a lot of lands, 26, and I don't have all of the correct rare lands that would make this deck even better. But that's what I have right now. So you definitely want to swap out these Meandering Rivers for some more Glacial Fortresses. And of course, these deserts that we can cycle, you might want to use the dual lands that cycle instead. All right. I mean, it's not a great deck, but it does okay, and it's kind of fun. So let's play a few games. So here we are in game 1. We're up against a Blue Storm deck. And actually, the land situation is almost perfect. It's really what we want. Unfortunately, we didn't have our 2-drop via strategic planning, but otherwise it was very good. And we ended up getting our Search for Azcanta. And for turn 3, Champion of Wits, Crucible of Worlds, Trophy Mage. That's exactly what we're looking for. Since we're playing the Crucible of Worlds, we'll be able to get that Meandering River back. Which is just perfect. And if you hear the song in the background, that's our Hill song to go with our mill deck. Another Bent mill. And of course, with our Champion of Wits, we were able to dump yet more lands into our graveyard for use with the Crucible of Worlds. Here, I was really rather concerned about Brawl, so that's why I decided to hold on to that cast out instead of And I could have fumigated it, but I went ahead and used the cast out in this instance. And of course, Storm deck in and Storm things, Paradox still out from a bunch of cards. Able to flood the board pretty heavily this way. And a lot of thinking, which is why I'm going to be running these games at 3x, just so that you guys don't have to wait. There's a lot to consider both for our opponent and for us. In this instance, I think it actually would have been better to play the Evolved Final to get our green. Master of Populous, a very scary card. And the Allergic Summon, not quite as scary as some of the other things. Fetching some more mana. That's doing all kinds of things. So we're able to dump another land, which is great for us. We end up finding the green anyway, but it really would have been better to fetch the green the prior turn. We're able to dump some more lands with our Champion of Wits and draw a bunch of cards. Now that he has the reservoir out, we are really on a clock here. Too many turns left. Of course, a lot of girdling going on in this one deck, which isn't uncommon. Able to transform our Azcanta. Here, it actually would have been better to play that Reliquary Tower, but oh, that's right. Right. At some point, he uses his Field of Ruin to destroy it, though. And I'm able to Fumigate here, or he may actually have, yeah, he does have the Disallow for it at this time. I was able to get rid of at least one of his Ornithopters, but not terribly important. It actually would have been better to keep my attacker back so that he could block the 3/3. But I wasn't sure he had the counter. And a bunch of attacking going on. Not too low yet, but it's going to be getting there. So here I probably should have played the Reliquary Tower, but I just didn't realize that was something I was going to need to do. And maybe drawing the extra card was beneficial anyway. Yeah, it takes a long time for the Storm players to get through all of the things that they need to do. And of course he has another counter here, I'm pretty sure. Yep, once again, another Disallow. A little bit surprised I'm not seeing the metallic version. So now I've got a Psychic Corrosion. It may have been good to play the second Tatyova, but then I wouldn't have been able to use this card. I really, really should have pulled out that Reliquary Tower. And another thing that you have to be careful is trying to keep track of how many lands you have. Because I just sacrificed 10 lands, but as it turns out, I only had 7 lands left. That's all I had in the graveyard. So it wasn't nearly as helpful as I would have hoped. And now I'm in land hell because I just had, well, card hell. There's so many cards in hand. It's just ridiculous. And if I had at least had the Reliquary Tower in play, then I wouldn't have had to dump so many cards. So you'll see I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff into the graveyard. And look at all those lands. What a mess. But it's pretty lovely. It's a lovely mess. And of course, Tezzeret, really unfortunate, because if he hadn't drawn something like that, then we would have been able to win on our next turn. So here we are in game 2 versus Smeltzuki. And at least we have the strategic planning, though having only 2 blue sources is kind of a problem, especially having double Fumigate. I decided not to throw it away. Maybe it would have been better to mulligan, but especially after getting a 3rd blue source, which is of course quite frustrating when you have a lot of white and green sources as well, and there's 4 Fumigates, which one of them I had to discard. But the opponent is also stuck on power. I don't know this yet, but he needs another plane. There's a Psychic Corrosion, so we can actually get our mill strategy online. And since we have both a white and a green now, we can play Tatyova. I mean, Ixalan's Binding, it's always really painful to see that on our main primary win condition, but we do have cast outs to deal with it later. So Tatyova is in play. So I'm trying to decide what to do with Lyra now that he's actually managed to find his planes. So I went ahead and committed it, which is why I held the mana open. Because I don't have the second plane to play Fumigate. I mean, that's really what I'm looking for. And strategic planning, still not finding the second plane. Of course, always very frustrating when this sort of thing happens. So I go ahead and I believe I scape shift here. So we don't get to have the full combo because I don't have the Psychic Corrosion. But we're still able to heal a bit and draw some cards. And fix our mana problems. Which is the primary thing that we needed to do here, is really fix that mana problem. We get to draw a bunch of cards, which is fantastic. And he keeps flooding the board even more. I decide to hold up mana for a Settle the Wreckage before Fumigating, which is fairly greedy, but I thought he might commit a little bit more to his attack, but the opponent's pretty smart. He knows we have a Settle the Wreckage, so he only plays his token, but we may as well not take the 5 damage, so I would go ahead and settle that. Once again, our hand is just kind of ridiculous. So many cards. And now it's time to start using these 3 Fumigates that we have in hand. Fumigate number 1. And of course we get to heal quite a bit. And draw some cards and dump some more stuff, lands especially, into our graveyard. Which is quite a lot of fun, of course. So I'm really trying to find the seal away. either Seal Away or one of our other mill cards. Well, actually, not Seal Away, but Cast Out, because I really want to cast out that Ixalan's Binding. And so now that he's played the Shalai, I'm going to have to Fumigate once again. And, oh, there we go. At least we now have a mill card in Fumigate, which is really what we were needing. So I play a land, play the Patient Rebuilding, and still looking for the Cast Out, since I have at least one Psychic Corrosion in hand already, and there are finally the Cast Out. So I'm able to play that and get rid of the Ixalan's Binding. Yes. And then, oh, I can't play the Psychic Corrosion. I wonder why. Oh, you can do it. The draw button is in the lower right-hand corner. You can do it. So I feel bad for our opponent here because I'm really just convinced that the game is bugged and I can't play these Psychic Corrosions, that there's some problem with the Ixalan's Binding, but no, I just needed to push the button. And oh yeah, I get to draw another Psychic Corrosion. And still I think I took another 10 seconds or so trying to find the main button. Yeah, now I have 3 Psychic Corrosions on the battlefield, so this game is over very, very soon. Yeah, he can do quite a bit of damage. He can heal a ton, but that's just not gonna help him. And we're gonna play hot potato a little bit here with that Psychic Corrosion, because I of course have another Fumigate in hand, which is fantastic. And I get the Psychic Corrosion right back. Of course, able to draw 2 cards, again with Evolving Wilds. And he's down to 14 cards in his deck. And once again, a little bit more hot potato with the Psychic Corrosion, but it's not going to help him. And here we are in Game 3 with Torrential Ghalta. And we actually have a much better mana situation this game than we did last game, which is awfully nice, and having 2 in the 3 drop is quite fantastic. And our opponent plays his Search, so we know what he's going to be possibly doing, since it looks like right now a blue and black control. Glint Sleeve Siphoner. I chose not to keep that second Fumigate. We're already able to get out the Psychic Corrosion, which is quite fantastic. I'm okay with him playing his Glint Sleeve, drawing cards from a Siphoner. And as it turns out, we're playing against a Grixis deck. And I really feel like I should have played the Crucible of Worlds there instead. Though, drawing the land, I was able to play one, but I think it would have been better to get the Crucible of Worlds, just in case he had a counterspell. And the Seal Away ends up being pretty nice for us here. Can keep the Champion of Wits. Though it would have really been best if I could have gotten a 5th land. So it's really unfortunate that I didn't play the Crucible of Worlds to make sure that my land situation was resolved. Magma Spray, of course, hurts the champion a lot, since we won't be able to embalm him, and then they play their own. Getting pretty low on health, but it's not too terrible since he doesn't have too much pressure at the moment. If he plays any kind of haste dragons, then we could be in a lot of trouble very quickly. At this point, because I didn't play the Crucible, I'm really in need of lands terribly. And I decided to risk playing the other Psychic Corrosion and not the Fumigate. And we do end up getting rewarded a little bit since we're able to also kill the Scarab God. I mean, he gets it back at the end of the turn, but at least we can kill it temporarily. So not the cleanest game for sure. I made some mistakes. We get to transform Azcanta and as well have a Settle the Wreckage ready for his Scarab God, which is really what we want. We want to exile the Scarab God as soon as possible. But we need to hold the Crucible in hand at this point, because otherwise he can just get rid of our Settle the Wreckage. So that's why I'm holding on to the Crucible at this point. And of course, yes, he does indeed pull his dragon to discard our card. Good old Nicol Bolas. Now I'm waiting for him to decide whether he wants to attack or not. It really takes him a long time. I'm not sure if he disconnected or just really had a hard time deciding what he wanted to do. Eventually he does decide to attack with it, but I am getting a bit antsy at this point. And we're able to settle it. Getting another Crucible is pretty nice, though I'm still just playing the Champion of Wits because I really need to draw some cards. Getting the cast out is pretty awesome. And of course, man, that's 16 cards that we're going to be putting into his graveyard. Not quite able to kill him, so we almost got him down to 0 cards in hand. But he just barely survives, and of course he has a memory in his graveyard, so he's able to reset his graveyard, get a full hand of cards. I mean, 7 times 2 times, it's a lot. So he practically milled, because we have 2 Psychic Corrosions out, practically mills himself. So only 11 cards left in his deck. And he's still having trouble trying to decide what he wants to do. And here we are at 2 life. But, you know, we're able to finish it off with this Champion of Wits. And out of cards. I really didn't need to play the seal away. I'm not sure why I did that. Maybe a little bit of BM. But there we go. Now for our third and final game, I'm just going to show you what typically happens against a aggressive opponent. This is usually what's going to happen to you. And yeah, I don't have a plain, no white mana, so maybe I should have mulliganed this hand, but decided to keep it since we have the double Champion of Wits. And the opponent plays G2 Lava Runner, and yeah, we know how this is going to go. The steamroller begins. And burn very, very powerful against this deck. There goes our Champion of Wits. It hopes to stop some of the bleeding, but it's just not going to work out for us. Because, of course, mono red, they have this super powerful card, Goblin Chain Whirler, and yeah, the Champion of Wits is toast. I get to play the second Champion of Wits. It's not going to be doing all that much better. Of course, in these situations, you want to just dump all of your mill cards because you're not going to be able to win in that situation. Sometimes you can beat the blue varieties if it's a red-blue burn deck. You're able to mill them, but against a mono red, you just have to hope that you get off a Settle the Wreckage into Fumigate. That's really the only way you can win. And he even has a Wizard's Lightning to seal the deal. And that's the end of us right there. So that was the Bant mill deck. A rather fun deck to play, though a little bit challenging. I know I made quite a few misplays. And yeah, no, it does okay. I don't think it's a fantastic deck, especially in the current meta. I think my total win rate, it was just under 50% after 20 games. And you're just going to lose against every single Turbo Fog because you cannot get rid of their Nexus of Fate. There's just nothing you can do about it. The only way is if you did happen to sideboard the Syncopates. But since that's a matchup, even then, even if you had the Syncopates, I'm not really convinced that you'd be able to beat them. As far as some of the other matchups go, it's also bad against any of the counters to the Nexus of Fate decks. So things that are playing Walking Ballistas, as you saw with the burn decks, they all perform pretty well against us. We just don't typically have the heal to survive the burn, especially against Walking Ballistas. So, of course, most aggro decks are going to steamroll you, red and green Stompy. But it is pretty good against Grixis and blue-black control. It's good versus Sarkhan's Unsealing. Any of the white heal, like any of the heal decks, it does well against those. White, green, and Angels. And then it's kind of so-so versus blue and white control. It all comes down to whether they get their Teferi and can keep it on the board. Since we only have 2 cast outs to deal with it, yeah, we don't do particularly well. So let's talk about the sideboard, which I have never used. I do have 2 more seal-aways to help a little bit more with aggro. Against control, I have Jace's Defeat as well as the 4 negates and a Sorceress Spyglass. I've got an extra search for Azcanta, 2 cast outs, and Ixalan's Binding, and of course, the Dominaria guy himself, Teferi. There may be a reason to play Ixalan's Binding instead of the cast outs, because we're often playing cards proactively. We're not typically holding up mana unless we're hoping to settle. So it may actually be better to play Ixalan's Binding instead of cast outs. I find that I so rarely will cycle cast out. So I think it may actually be better just to switch them. But that will be up to you. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.